It's a chilly and rainy Sunday afternoon. It's November 27th, 2022. It's about 49 degrees outside, and we're looking at my John Deere Gator that I bought for a song from a neighbor. It's going to be great on the property down in Texas. But as you can tell, it's got a flat front tire right there. That's okay, we'll replace it. It's a great day to do some work on the LTD. To quote Letter Kenny a couple years after the fact, pitter patter. That works on two levels, rain and pitter patter. Let's get at it. Rain, you see how that, never mind.
Look, squirrel.
Before we get to making the heat shields, I really need to clean off some room off my work desk here. And the easiest way to do that, well, is to put the Sledgehammer back on the car. So let's go do that first. Oddly enough, the front tires for the Gator showed up when I was shooting that stuff at the desk. Here they are. Well, they should do the job. Let's go put this thing in. It's easier to set it down here and slide it in underneath. I'm not sure I ever showed how I installed this thing into the car, and since I treated myself to a head-mounted gimbal camera for Black Friday, figured, hey, now's a good time, right? I'm sure somebody wants to know this. So basically it's mounted in place with just 3 3/8 course bolts, 2 from the top, 1 from the bottom. It's pretty straightforward, although for whatever reason this time it was like incredibly arduous to do, and of course Simon was all up in my face most of the time.
Simon, buddy, I need to get there.
But he's good people. He makes another appearance later in the video. And then I just taped over the discharge just so nothing falls in there, because I'm not hooking it up just yet. We're going to take it naturally aspirated for a drive just to get the transmission temps after we put in the heat shields. So there's a whole bunch of cables going to the LMT motor. There are 6 heavy winding cables. The reason for that is it gives you more flexibility in how to actually configure the motor, whether it's in Delta or Y. Plus, it's easier to run 2 smaller, thinner cables than 1 big fat cable. And of course, there's also the sensor cable that we connect to the whole thing. And it's just that simple. And then once they're connected, I just simply zip tie the cables to the frame of the Sledgehammer just to keep them out of the way so I don't get wrapped up in the pulleys or anything. No big deal. And of course the air filter goes on. That protects the inlet even though it's not being used right now, but it is what it breathes through when it's driving around supercharged or turbocharged or electrically boosted. Let's get on to the heat shields.
Simon, you're totally in the way, dude.
This new camera makes it feel like you're just hanging out with me in the garage the whole time. It makes it so much easier to actually show what I'm doing, especially in the tight confines of my garage. But that's all going to change soon. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to continue to suffer in the small space. Suffer with me. Suffer!
All right, let's see how long of a shield we're going to need. Start on the passenger side. It's a little bit easier. The transmission pan is like pretty much almost exactly 9 inches long. So you can tell this is not going to be fun here. Well, it looks like on this side, because there is no shift detent, the heat shield maybe and it is, yes, it is juicy down here. Indeed, it is quite juicy. Well, let's find out what this diameter here is. We know that's 3 inches. I don't know what that is. What do we got? We got to have something. I'm sure we got something. Piece of string. Piece of wire. Just a random piece of wire. Okay. Ooh, piece of candy. That's a reference to Family Guy. All right. So, here it's going to be 14 inches, pretty much exactly 14 inches. So if you're a frequent flyer on my channel, you'll know That, well, you can't see it from here because of all the crap that's in the way. But you'll know I bought a sheet metal machine to make these heat shields. Why? Because the price of the shielding was kind of outrageous. Well, it turns out there's a company offering heat shielding for cars for what actually amounts to be quite a reasonable price. And I'll put a link in the description below.
Pardon the intrusion, but that last bit made me actually want to look up the brand name of this heat shielding company, which, yeah, immediately pretty much made me laugh. Similar to what turns out to very likely have been an urban legend, the story about, Chevy marketing the Nova in Mexico, and Nova means no-go in Spanish. It didn't really work out. That looks like that could have just been an urban legend. That got me to look up a few others, and here are 3 little gems I found. The American Dairy Association. Remember their Got Milk ad campaign? It went on for years and years. Well, they translated that one into Spanish as, "Are you lactating?" Mazda, not to be outdone, in Spanish of course, put out a car called a La Puta. Puta, of course, means prostitute or whore, and it was actually a minivan, and the part that I liked about that was the additional copy they included with it. So the copy read, "We have designed a La Puta to deliver maximum utility in a minimum space while providing a smooth, comfortable ride and a lightweight, impact-absorbing body. If whatever you're doing with your putas requires a lightweight, impact-absorbing body, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. I don't know." But my favorite one, and the perfect segue, because this one takes us from Spanish to Chinese, is Benz. Yes, Mercedes-Benz thought it'd be a great idea to enter the Chinese market under the brand name of Benzie, which, of course, in some flavor of Chinese, I don't know if it's Mandarin or what, means rush to die. Well, if these Benzes are made in China, then that could very likely be accurate. But this heat shielding is no different. It is, of course, a Chinese company. It's a great product, actually. It turned out really, really well. But this is their name. Pea Storm. Yeah. Pea Storm. A storm of pea. Or peas. Either one is not good. Pea Storm. I don't know about you, but when I think of, boy, I could use some heat shielding, I think a storm of urine. Yeah, let's just get back to it.
But this is it. It's aluminum. It's surprisingly heavy gauge. This takes some effort to bend. This is not like aluminum flashing. It's considerably heavier than that. But, yeah, I'm not really sure what the best approach here is going to be. This is basically just aluminum that's been stamped into this pattern. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but isn't aluminum a great thermal conductor? It is. But it also is a great barrier. Think about this. Think about if you're standing next to a campfire, you're too close to the campfire, right? And you hold up a piece of, and your face is getting really hot, and you hold up a piece of aluminum. This will definitely cool it off. Even though it will transmit some of the heat, it has to go through several additional heat transfer modes to get to you. I believe there's convection, there's conduction, and there's radiation. It's got to radiate to the heat shield. The heat shield has to warm up, and then the heat shield has to radiate out. It's a huge reduction in heat. All right, we're just going to kind of eyeball this about 8 inches. It's probably overkill, but we got to start somewhere. Let's go over to the machine I bought to make heat shields. All right, we have to open the garage door to be able to use this thing. Such is life. And let's figure out how we can... Yeah, it'll have to work. Alright, it should be pretty easy. It does function as a rather substantial shear. the mark. Well, let's see if she'll shear. Oh, like butter. Look at that. Freaking gorgeous. That right there paid for itself as far as I'm concerned. Man, that would be so painful if I didn't have this thing. To be honest with you, this is how I do everything. Like, I plan nothing out. I just sort of make it up as I go. So, this is 15 1/4 inches wide. We only actually need, what do we say, like 10 inches? Like that much? Wow. Yeah, this is not going to be that difficult, actually. I mean, this stuff is pretty substantial. I was going to fold it over and do all kinds of fancy stuff. I don't really think that's necessary. I think, you know, we're just going to go for 10. We're just, you know, close enough. Because why not? Back to the shear we go. Oh, I love this thing. That's it. There's your freaking heat shield. Just got to come up with some tabbies of some sort. Does that look about right? Does that look right to you? Went a bit far. But now I have to make a backwards bend, which means I should have made that backwards bend first. Okay, well, you live and learn, right? So let's just do it on this one then. Let's put it approximately where we think we want it. This isn't rocket science. Let's not get carried away with this. Okay. And now, we'll just remarkably easy. And now the problem is, what do I do with this? Well, I'm going to regret this, but since I've already screwed it up, let's see if we can unscrew it up. Right here. All right. Question is, though, is this still kind of too long? Yeah, it's almost like you need a spacer. I feel like this whole thing is too long, though. Let's trim it and redo it. Yes, I have a lot of sheet metal stuff. Okay. Is that? I don't even know if that's straight. This is why you don't want to use a sheet metal shear. It does this. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little off. Not really enough for me to care though. Alright, we're going to have to work in the dark because I'm kind of getting... Okay. And this one's easy, you just bring it in as close as you can. Alright. Did I tell you how much I love that machine? So I bought a whole bunch of these diamond cutoff wheels, but I don't think I'm going to use them because that'll make the slit too wide and not necessarily thick enough. What up, Simon? You want to make the video, dude? Say hi. What do you have to say, Simon? He loves being in the garage. It's his favorite place. He is, after all, a man. Alright. Instead, I'm going to use these carbide end mills. I bought a whole ton of these from some CNC operation. They're all used, but I'm not going to lie, I can't tell. To me, they're sharp as the dickens, whatever that means. If we're doing this, safety goggles are definitely mandatory. I don't know how this is going to work with this head-mounted camera I'm using, but we'll find out. So we are completely just going off the cuff. No need to over-engineer this. Let's say like right about there. This is going to get ugly. Alright, so the next question is, how am I going to attach it? Well, these are the only hose clamps I buy anymore. These are Norma type hose clamps. You find them on Audis, and basically they're made in Germany. I don't think these are actually Norma brand. Let's see if I can... Gemmy, but still made in Germany. These are great. These are fantastic. And they're not the typical garbage you get at the hardware store around here. So we do know that the long piece is up there. So basically this goes through that hole, it goes through this hole, and to simulate the exhaust header, basically it's this. So basically that's how it's going to work on the car, except I do not have clamps like this that are big enough. I'm going to have to order some because I think I measured 113, 114 millimeters. These are only up to 80. So what am I going to do up there? Well, in the interim, I'm going to use a couple of these guys. And these are these are basically just stainless steel zip ties. Alrighty. Let's see if this is going to be aggravating or easy. I do not know. I've never done it before. Okay. Oh no, actually. Really, Simon? Really, dude? Yeah, this is what I gotta put up with. Hi, buddy. Just joking. He's good, people. Because this will also hold it in place. Wow. It's like we planned it. And start driving her home. Like that. Of course, now it's sharper than hell, but you know what? I'm going to give you all a look of something that I can't see. We're going to put the light down right in the puddle of oil that's permanently under the car and take off the head camera. And there you go. There's our heat shield.
And a missing transpan bolt, the things you see in editing. I made the shield on the driver's side pretty much exactly the same way. It was just a little tighter fit because that's where the shift linkage is for the transmission pan, and it's a little closer to the pan on that side, but still fit. So before we see the results, we need to know what the before was, don't we? Fortunately, I thought ahead and grabbed some footage of the gauges with my cell phone when I was just tooling around in the LTD. It was about 55 degrees or about 10 degrees warmer in this before video where you can see the trans temp. The trans temp is the gauge on the bottom. And we did hit a high of about 213, 215 degrees, but cell phone footage only captured 210. What's important to note here is it was 10 degrees warmer, but I was driving with the cooling fan running the whole time, and that draws right through the transmission cooler. That's the green LED. On the after test, I did not. Things are just not getting warm, folks. Those heat shields appear to have made a humongous difference, but we don't know yet. We haven't driven long enough. Transmission temperature is at 139, 138, 138 and holding. Coolant temp is at 140. Now keep in mind, for the radiator, that is like an $80 part store Mustang replacement radiator for a Mustang GT for a Fox body. It's no fancy pants, nothing. It's thin, it's cheap, it's light, and without the fan running, it's at 139. So for those of you folks who are having coolant temperatures, coolant temp issues, now I realize it's a cold day outside, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't overheat when it's 100 outside either. You know, you got to make sure you have all your aero stuff in place. You know, make sure that the air is being forced through the core. That makes a huge difference. Huge difference. But we're both at 139 right now. Tranny just hit 140, so did coolant. Now both are 139. Both are 140. I bet if I got onto it, let's see which would go up faster. I bet your transmission does because it's just less volume. Jesus Christ, this thing is fast. That was like maybe a little over half throttle. Yeah, transmission's at 147, coolant's at 138. Let's see what happens when it comes down. Is it going to come down? We're rolling at 51 miles an hour. 148 on the tranny temp, 137 on the coolant. Still no fan action anywhere. 136 on the coolant, 148 on the trans temp. This is where we get the transmission up to temperature. Let's see. 149 on the trans temp, 150 on the trans temp. This is where it starts to climb. 154. Coolant is staying at 136. 156 on the trans temp. 154 on the trans temp. 136 on the coolant temperature. 156. 157. 156. See, what happened before is it would never cool off. It would get hot and then it would just keep getting hotter. And that's kind of what's happening now, but it's only has yet to hit 160, but it's about to. 158 on the trans temp. 160. We got 160, 161 on the trans temp. Just for laughs, let's see what happens when we turn the cooling fan on. Okay, cooling fan's on. I felt a little bump, so you know it's drawing power because I don't have a soft start, which I should. Transmission temperature is at 159, 158, 159, 157. Yeah, so the fan is definitely cooling her off. 158, 157, 157, 156. I wasn't able to get it over 180 degrees driving around. Now, it was 10 degrees cooler this day, give or take, but I also wasn't running the radiator fan hardly at all. When I pulled into the garage, I decided to try something. See, before, what would happen is when you came to a stop and there was no air flowing underneath the car, that would be the kiss of death. That's where the temps would just kind of spiral out of control. The heat from the exhaust and the collectors would go right into the transmission pan, and it would just keep going up, 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 and up, and I couldn't get it to cool down. So this time when I pulled in the garage, I just sat there and kind of torture tested it to see what would happen. Let's see where it stabilizes at. I hit 190, but there's no fan. Coolant's at 160. Let's turn the fan on. $187, $186, $185, $184. Yeah, the transmission temp is dropping faster than the coolant temp. Heat shields, big thumbs up, big thumbs up. Before, it would just stay up there and it would either rise or stay stagnant if the fan was on. This is awesome. So I think I'm still going to relocate the transmission cooler, get it away from the radiator, which will make the radiator even more efficient. And the transmission cooler is going to get its own set of fans anyway. So if you like this kind of stuff, give me a thumbs up. We're going to put the AEM meth injection kit on the car. We're taking it back up to Ray's to put her on the dyno and make some real power. 170. So here 169. 169 on the fan. 145 on the coolant temp. 144. Yep, 169. There it is.